Hi, my name is Taylor Osbrooks, and today I'm going to be discussing the Center for Dependence. So, the purpose of this agency is to provide a resource for children and their families to come to understand the deployment process and give them coping skills to help negate some of the adverse effects of deployment. In this presentation, I'm going to be discussing the mission and vision of this agency, the organizational structure, services provided, a SWOT analysis which discusses the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the agency, a strategic plan, plan for financial stability, and how we plan on evaluating this program. So the agency, like I said, is the Center for Dependence. The mission of the agency is our agency strives to ease the adverse effects that military deployment has on the families of the deployed soldier. We will also provide a resource that gives the soldier and their family the support they need. The vision of the agency is to provide a resource to help the children and families of deployed soldiers cope with all of the changes that deployment brings. So some of the performance indicators are through the services that are provided, and some of those services include teaching children about the deployment process, helping children understand their feelings and providing coping skills, providing children with ways to maintain communication with the deployed parent, and we will also provide therapy for any mental health issues that the children have as a result of this, as a result of the deployment. And we will also provide grief and loss support if needed, and will help with the reintegration process when the soldier is returning home. So, this agency is something that the children and the parent that is still home can utilize throughout the entire deployment process. So, for the organizational structure, the type of leadership that I would utilize at this agency is a supportive leadership. I would be an LCSW at the agency, so I would be a therapist for children, families, and then we would be under the Department of Defense. Since this is a military-based program, we would be under the Department of Defense. That would be the head of the organization. And then we would also have the executive board, which would include myself, any donors, any the units or battalions that want to get involved. We would have the teachers that would provide the classes for the children, and then any volunteers or interns. So we would probably have a total of 8 people actually working at the agency on a regular basis. So that would be 3 LCSWs and 5 teachers. So the teachers would be able to teach each age range and come up with age-appropriate activities and ways to help the children of each age group deal with deployment. And the teachers would preferably be either trained in child education, or not child education, but child development, or will be bachelor's level or master's level social workers. um, so the target population for this agency would be children between the ages of 3 and 10, because they studies show, tend to be most at risk for having adverse effects of the deployment process. Um, and since there is no military base here in Bowling Green, this agency is geared towards Fort Campbell. And the reason I chose this service is I am a military brat myself, and there was no service for me like this when my father deployed, and I never really understood the process. I just knew that my dad was going away. I didn't really know why. I didn't know if he was coming back. I didn't really know how to cope with that separation. So this agency is something that I feel would be very beneficial. um, so for the strategic planning, some of the strengths are that this agency would provide specialized education and therapy for children with deployed parents. This also teaches children about the deployment process in age-appropriate ways. Um, and then this agency also provides a resource for both the children and the stay-at-home parent to assist with deployment-related issues. There is a need for this type of agency in the community because there is not a deployment resource center geared towards children. It addresses the social problem of children having adverse effects as a result of parental deployment. And it makes the reintegration process easier on both the family and the returning soldier. Some weaknesses are that it's difficult to determine the operating hours because this agency is geared towards providing classes and resources for children to understand deployment. It's kind of hard to figure out what the best operating hours would be since children are typically in school. And this is another weakness is that they might have a system or a program kind of like this implemented in each battalion. They don't have classes per se, but they may do something to help children understand the deployment process. Another weakness is that this agency might not be as utilized if there are no units deploying at the time. And another weakness was I wasn't really able to find a lot of grants specifically for this topic. Some of the opportunities of this agency are that it provides donation opportunities for within the community, so those who are maybe passionate about helping military families or just helping children in general, they could donate to this agency. This is a program that could be implemented in every single military base, so it could expand other than just Fort Campbell. It could be all over the world. Um, and then it provides jobs for those that are passionate about helping the military families or children. of military families. Some of the threats of this is that parents might not bring their children because they might have work, and once the children get out of school, they won't want to take them anywhere else. Uh, like I stated before, there's limited funding options, so that could be a threat to possibly losing the funding for this um, agency. And then there's also competition with other programs or agencies, because I know there are some other therapy offices, but they provide just therapy for children. This agency would provide like classes and resources to help them with coping skills in addition to therapy, but there could be competition with other agencies similar to this. Um, so the risk reduction methods that I would use is to evaluate the program. I would use a pre and post test. So at the first class the children attend, I would give them the pre-test, and it basically finds out like what they know about deployment currently and the coping skills that they already have in place. Um, and then, like after the soldiers returned home, or when they no longer feel they need the services, I would give them the post test and see if the agency has been useful and given them the help and the resources that they need. So for financial, or for the budget for this agency, I had written down that the total annual budget was going to be $312,000, or $312,250,000. $312,250. And this includes the income, and a couple of the grants that I found, including our military kids grant. And then I also included individual donors, private donors, and fundraising. So for the Our Military Kids grant, I did $50,000 because that was the cap that I saw when I did my research. For individual donors, I put $5,000 because I did some research about other programs getting individual donors throughout the community, uh, and that was around the amount that I saw. For private donors, I put $7,000 because that is um, around the amount that I saw while doing my research. And then I included fundraising. For expenses, I included salaries, which would be $200,000, and that would be the salaries for 3 LCSWs and 5 teachers. Um, and I figured that was about working 10 to 15 hours a week, because like I said, with children being in school during the day, most of our operating hours where we would actually have classes and stuff like that would be either after school or on the weekends. So um, it wouldn't be a full-time job. And then for art supplies, I put $6,000. Cleaning supplies, $600. Snacks, $3,000. rent would be $8,600, utilities about $1,800, insurance for the building would be $750, equipment such as tables, chairs, whiteboards, TVs, so on and so forth. I put 7,500, and then any miscellaneous items I put for 2,000. So when you added all of that together, it came up with 312,250. So that would be the annual budget for this agency. So some of the goals for this agency is that we provide support and educational activities to the children related to parental deployment, and that they get and they're able to implement healthy coping skills that they can use throughout the deployment and in future deployments. Like I stated, my plan for evaluation would be a pre and post test, and so I would give that out when when they started using our program, and then once they stopped using the program, then I would give them the post test. And then our the um, the activities that we would do would be age appropriate, and we would pay attention to different cultural differences when coming up with intervention strategies and treatment options. And we would and we would make sure that we were compliant with the code of ethics and everything that we did. I feel that this agency could be very beneficial because, like I said, um, children, research has shown that children have adverse effects, especially at younger ages, and it also is when they are developing socially and emotionally, so the separation from a parent could have adverse effects that could impact them for the rest of their lives. So having a resource to help them kind of understand what is happening and give them coping skills and help them understand their emotions and how to maintain a relationship with their parent while they're deployed is something that I feel could be very useful. Thank you.